We do a lot of breakdowns that are huge, flashy plays. You know, a huge call, a huge fold, a huge bluff. Those are all really cool and we enjoy those a lot. But poker tournaments in general involve so many little hands that happen throughout that don't have those huge plays, that have these tiny little marginal decisions that really affect your tournament and your poker profitability over time. And today we have a hand from the Triton Super High Roller 130K buy-in where there are a multitude of tiny little marginal decisions, and they're all fascinating in their own rights. And that's why we want to do this hand.
Yeah, you're going to see also that Grant and I don't even necessarily agree on all of the marginal decisions. That's how marginal they are. Now, once in a while we disagree on the big decisions too, but mostly we're on the same page. But here, there's at least one or two where we're like, I think I would have done it different than you there, bud.
Yeah, and obviously I'm right every time, and that's what the audience can learn.
There's no anger between us at all.
Anyway, this hand was suggested by Ronnie on Twitter. If you have a suggestion for the breakdown, please tweet at us, include a YouTube link and a timestamp.
And of course, also make sure you sign up for Nitrogen Sports Poker. That's where we have our poker tournament at the end of every month where they guarantee 1,000 buy-ins. That's right, 1,000 buy-ins. We usually get like 80 or 90 people playing. That means there's a massive, massive overlay. But you have to use the link that we have on our Twitter account and our Twitter feed, which usually with when we post the link for this video, it's also going to be there. You got to sign up through that link to get access to it. Tell them about it, man.
I mean, use the link on Twitter. That's how you get access to the thing. Also, it's a Bitcoin-only poker site. The best thing about that is the super fast withdrawals. They give you your money in 90 minutes in your Bitcoin wallet. Nobody else does that I'm aware of. Everybody else makes you wait a day or two, maybe 3 sometimes. Don't deal with that BS. Get on Nitrogen. Get you some poker.
See some people at the table that just exude confidence. He's one of those guys. Chan Wei, raising to 26,000 with 9-8 suited. He's going to get some action. Probably from both blinds. We'll see how it plays out, though. Chun with King 10 of hearts. Calling, certainly reasonable. 3-betting. Not out of line. He makes the call. And Ahmedi's got a suited ace.
Netanel.
Crazzle Monkey says Seidel's range is so thin, he's so easy to read. Yeah.
I'm going to have to go ahead and disagree with you there.
Come on. Seidel is very easy to play against. Have you ever played against Seidel?
No.
There you go. How do you know? Yeah, Seidel's been doing it for quite some time. And when I say doing it, I mean doing it well. Well, if you're going to raise pre-flop with 9-8 of clubs, this is a pretty good flop for you. You flop an open-ended straight draw, backdoor clubs. Now, interestingly enough, Ahmedi actually leads out. Kind of definitely a non-standard, unconventional play to lead out into the original raiser. Everybody's got something here. Open-ended straight draw, pair sevens, and Chun's got top pair. It's a fun one. 137,000 in there. Chan calls. Now back over to Chun. Now Chun doesn't have that many chips. Pot's 184,000. He only has 245 behind. Certainly could call.
Nah.
It looks like he might just put it all in there.
Is there something to getting it all in here and just protecting?
Yeah, there's something to it. I mean, you know, when you're called, it's hard for you to be ahead and love it. But, you know, he's not getting a better hand to fold. I'll put it that way. He's not getting jacks to fold.
Of course not, but you just might prevent a card that you hate on the turn. A queen, a jack, a king, an ace.
You might get called by a worse 10 also. You might get called by, you know, a big flush draw, or in this case, a straight draw even.
This is one of those hands that just has, like I said in the beginning, so many little decisions in it, and that's what makes it interesting. And so far, I think the most interesting decisions obviously have been Xiao's with the King 10 of hearts in the small blind and about 21 blinds to start the hand. There's a lot of stuff here that just feels like, everything feels wrong, starting with pre-flop, right, Jonathan?
I mean, look, I'm sure there are people out there who could show us that a solver says to call with King 10 of hearts. It's not crazy to do it by any means at all. We actually went back and forth on this in the podcast a bit. But I personally don't love it because of the playability post-flop. Grant would probably argue, I know he did on the podcast, that it's probably a little too good to 3-bet and a little too bad to fold. I personally like a 3-bet where you're not committed to the pot. But It's not the end of the world to call, I guess.
I really do prefer a call, actually. I think 3-betting to 6 or 7 blinds, you're going to get called too frequently by the guy in position with a huge stack. And when you get shoved on, you obviously have to fold, which sucks based on the amount of your stack you just put in.
Sure.
It's kind of a disaster in a lot of ways. I think this is a hand that plays well enough post-flop. You can call here. It's okay. You can figure it out. If you think you can navigate post-flop, I think it's fine to call. I actually prefer a call. I think 3-betting puts you in a weird spot, especially not shoving, and shoving also feels bad. So I don't know. Calling just feels right because folding seems crazy.
I mean, all the decisions kind of suck in my opinion. But anyway, whatever. To me, it's a pretty marginal spot no matter what you decide to do.
This is all the marginal spots,
Yeah, it's
right?
all the marginal. Let's get into a less marginal spot, though, which is post-flop.
Right, on the flop here, where let's talk quickly about this lead by Amidi, which is a bit strange, right?
Yeah, okay.
I mean, he leads middle pair here. This feels almost like an amateurish level lead. I don't know if this guy is amateurish or not, but I know usually when an amateur leads middle pair, it's because they kind of don't know what to do and they're a little bit afraid. And he's not the guy who has the flow of the action. It just all feels kind of strange, kind of like he's just trying to find out where he is or something.
I mean, he's not a Game of Thrones showrunner. He probably has a sense of where he's going.
Wow, you were waiting to use that one for a while.
I can't believe they ended the season like that. What are they doing? Anyway, come on, Tyrion, Fran, I'm just saying. So, so on one level, I completely agree with Grant that this doesn't seem to be the hand you would normally donk out with in this spot. But this is the kind of board you might attack. Where he's trying to protect his equity. He thinks this is often going to be a check back. He's probably right, although maybe not in this exact case, of course, up against 9-8. He really may get a bet here, maybe not, depending on how long he decides to play this board. So it's not the end of the world to bet, in my opinion, but I certainly agree with Grant that I wouldn't play it like this. I would be check calling.
Right, this feels like a pretty simple check call hand. A 7 feels like the ultimate check call hand, actually, on this board.
I mean, I don't disagree.
Yeah, so then the 8-9 just calls here of long, and I think that makes a decent amount of sense. I mean, he's not really supposed to have a 7 when he leads, right? That feels like not the hand that he would have. Although you would want him to have a 7 if you're going to raise, because that'd be great because he's going to fold a 7, which is part of why I don't really love leading a 7 in a hand with value. Anyway, it makes sense to me to call the 8-9, right? You too?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, we can represent spades later on if we want to. We're in position. We don't have to inflate the pot. Also, you know, if the 21 or now the 19 blind stack decides to play the hand, it's good to know that right now rather than making a committing raise. We don't want to get blown off the hand, though, I think is the most important thing. We just don't have to by calling. It's really easy.
Yeah, now let's talk about, again, Xiao, who has the most interesting decision here. Now, pre-flop, we went back and forth a lot on the podcast about what we liked. I liked the call. Jonathan didn't like it as much. But we both agree here that this feels like a pretty clear raise to get it in spot for Xiao here. I mean, just shoving is fine. It's just a little bit more than pot if he shoves. I don't see what he's doing by just calling here. I mean, it's very unlikely that Long has anything that's super strong here, having not raised on the flop. And it's also, Amidi's leading range obviously includes a lot of weird stuff.
I mean, look, without question, Amidi can have 2-pair and he can have
Yes.
sets. Long can have overpairs and better 10s, ace 10 specifically. These things are absolutely out there, right? Like overpairs are usually not going to raise this flop. That said, they also have a lot worse hands. There's a lot of draws on this board. You can represent the draw by shoving, which doesn't suck when you've actually got a pretty good hand. Also, hello, you've got 19 blinds.
Yeah, I mean,
You have to know where you're going when you start this hand. Otherwise, I don't like calling as much. Game of Thrones, man. Game of Thrones.
It's definitely Game of Thrones. Yeah, I mean, this is a pretty great flop for this hand when you have 21 blinds. And to be clear, if he had 45 blinds to start the hand, we would never be advocating a raise here.
Correct.
But with his stack size, he just needs to protect his equity in this pot. He can still get called by worse hands, by the way, which is a great part about this as well. Shoving seems like the play here. You can get called by worse hands. You can fold out equity. This pot is extremely meaningful to you right now. I don't know why he's just calling.
It seems like such a straightforward shove. Also, let's not forget, you're in the worst position. If it checks through on the turn, it's terrible for you. So I understand it may be a little scary when you were hoping to just check raise one guy, and now you have 2. But there's more money in the pot. You have a good hand. You block top set. You block some of the other things that can beat you. Get it in, man.
And there's a lot of bad cards, by the way, on the turn.
So many bad cards, you'll never know where you are.
Turns an 8.
I'm so bad. I would consider just open shoving on a nice turn like that too.
Yeah, I don't know
a
how
not
bad it
super
is.
dangerous turn.
It's scary. I mean, he only has, what, 16 big
Like
blinds?
I want what's in the middle right now.
Stack to pot ratio is less than 1. Be a little ambitious for Amedi to bet again, I think. But that's exactly what he's going to... Nope, he's using a time chip to figure it out. There's a reasonable chance this could just check through. Mehdi does bet again. Bets 83,000. For the record, he has the worst hand.
He sure does. Man, I would have a real hard time folding 9-8 here.
He's got an open-ended straight draw and a pair of eights. You're getting almost 4-1.
So let's talk about when Chan calls. Can June then shove?
I mean, he could fold, to be honest. I mean,
I would seriously consider folding. Absolutely.
Yeah. I mean, we can see the cards.
I can see the cards, exactly.
Right. So it's like, no, shove, don't fold. But, you know, when Mehdi's bet on the turn shows an enormous amount of strength. We can see that he actually doesn't have a very good hand. But the fact that he led out on the flop, got called by two players, and then said, yeah, I don't care. I'm going to bet anyway again.
King 10 does, in fact, fold. So the best hand folds to the river, which is a 9. So 2 pair for Chan.
It is a third spade as well.
Third spade, 4 cards straight.
Now, if Mehdi bets here, it's clear he is bluffing. You know, the question is...
Wait, clear to us or clear to Chan?
Clear to
us.
himself.
Oh.
Clear to himself.
Yes,
I mean,
okay.
He's 100% bluffing.
Sorry, I thought you were going to say somehow that this line is like a very clear bluff. If
No. It's
because it could very easily be spades.
Yeah, he could easily have bet.
Yeah.
He could easily have bet the flop with spades, the turn with spades, and cool, just got there.
It's tough to have gotten there with the straight, I guess, right? No, he's in the big blind, so...
Yeah, but what hands is he betting flop and betting turn with?
Jack 10?
I don't... I feel like Jack 10 would have really liked to see a free turn card. Like check Jack 10. I mean, if he decided to bet Jack 10 on the flop.
9-6? I agree.
I think you're right. I don't think he has a ton of jacks in his range.
There's not that many straights, but I think that there are some.
Yeah. I think there's more spades, though. I think he does have some spade combinations. He may have some 2-pair combinations. But if he has 2-pair combinations, you can likely beat those 2-pair. And he goes check. He gives up.
All right, so it ended a little bit with a whimper there. But should it have is something that we'll get to in a second. First, let's talk about the turn here, where Amidi decides to lead again. Now, on the flop, I think his bet was simply protection, not a protection bet that we particularly liked, but it was a protection bet, right? It seemed like mostly what it was doing.
Probably.
A little tiny bit of value, maybe from hands like 7-8 at the time. But when he bets the turn, after getting called in 2 spots, this is clearly a bluff at this point, right?
It really seems like
Yeah.
it. So he's basically using the other 2 players' position of the hand against them. So if you are long and now you've got a meaty behind you, it's not as easy to just call, even if you've got a hand like ace.
If you have Xiao behind you.
Sorry,
But yeah.
Xiao, right, my bad. Amidi is, of course, the guy who's leading with ace-7. You've got Xiao, but it's much harder to call. Now, I think you're still going to call with an overpair, but you're going to fold out maybe some slightly better hands. 8s, 9s, maybe some bad 10s are really going to have to consider folding like Jack 10 or something like that. It's not a great spot.
It's not a great spot, but the fact that Long has the open ender to go with a pair now means he can't really fold, especially the price is pretty good. It's only 83K and the pot was already over 200K. Seems like a pretty good price.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And so now, again, Xiao is in one of these spots. He's just constantly in these spots where it's like everything kind of sucks. I mean, the flop seemed like a pretty clear spot, does actually. But on the turn here, this spot actually sucks quite a bit now. Amidi is repping extreme strength here. I mean, I think Long is basically calling just to hit a straight for the most part. He's thinking, okay, I might have to hit a straight to win this hand against Amidi's range here. Amidi maybe has 7-4 or something like that, but often he'll have something better than that, too.
I mean, sure, but you can also beat spades if you're long, at least.
Sure. Also, if you're Xiao. But
right, that's true. But from Xiao's point of view, now he's got to be 2 players. And I mean, the question you have to ask yourself as Xiao is Long ever calling with Queen 10 here? And I don't know that he is.
I don't know. Maybe Jack 10 because he also has the straight draw. Maybe.
Maybe, okay. So there's a few 10s.
I'm not really sure if we can really count on that. And also, Long still has all of the overpairs in his range. King 10 is probably not good enough to call here, even though he does have the best hand. He has no extra equity like Long has, where he has the open ender to go with his pair, right? There's no little escape valve for the King 10 here. So it feels like he's kind of backed himself into a corner by not raising on the flop because his stack isn't big enough to do anything but kind of fold here. Because what are you going to do if another bet goes in on the river and you don't hit a 10 or a king? You're just going to fold, right?
I mean, I think so. And there's a million bad cards. Every spade sucks. Every jack, 9, 8, 7, 6 sucks. Ace sucks. Like, everything's scary.
Yeah.
So I don't think you could call. I think you have to fold for sure. If you weren't going to fold, maybe you just move it in at this point, so that way you don't make a bad fold on the river. But but folding makes sense.
I think folding is the best play at this point. So now we get to the river, and Xiao's out of there. We got the best hand out of there.
Nice job.
Wouldn't have been the best hand by the river, but of course wouldn't have seen the river if we shoved the flop. No big deal. But the question here on the river, when it goes check, is should Amidi be taking a shot here? Should he continue the play?
Right. So I think he should.
Yes, I agree.
I think Amidi probably, after being called on the turn, in his head should be thinking, all right, I'm done with this. And then this is one of the greatest cards in the world to take a shot on, right? Where you have a lot of jacks, a lot of weird jacks. You probably have more jacks than your opponent. You also have all the spade combinations.
That's the important one.
Where Long only has some of the spade combinations. Or
right.
I guess you don't have all, but you have almost all. Like, you don't have the ace, king of spades. But you have almost all the spade combinations, and Long has much, much, much less spade combinations.
Right. Long has the bigger spades and the better spades and the more connected spades that make sense because he's the opener. But in the big blind, after the small blind already calls, closing the action, you might have literally every spade combination except for the super big ones that you would 3-bet as a meaty. That means you have a spade advantage here. You might have played spades this way the whole way throughout. I think even though sometimes Long has spades, it's still a shot that you have to take because you have a slight range advantage spades-wise. And I think you should size it kind of small, kind of repping like I could have any level of spades here, like maybe 125 to 150K.
Yeah, I like slightly bigger, but whatever. We're all in the same neighborhood. I think 170. It's all the same, really. I guess one, you get a little more value, or save yourself some, depending if you get called. But really, what you should be targeting is the overpairs and the ace tens of the world, the hands that are very reasonably calling on both flop and turn. That's I think that the range you're giving up against on the turn, and then a card comes that allows you not to have to give up. Yes, sometimes he gets there. Sometimes he's got a jack. Sometimes he's got spades and isn't folding. Sometimes he's got 2 jacks, but. I mean, if he's got 2 kings with the king of spades, it's still a really tough spot, and I think he's probably folding.
I think he's probably folding the hand that he has, which is 2 pair. I think 8-9 is probably folding.
It's really tough.
Yeah, I mean, you're obviously not beating any value with 8-9. So yeah, I think Amidi, I understand why Amidi doesn't take a shot here. Probably he shut down on the turn, as Jonathan said in the podcast. He just mentally shut down. Also, it looks like a card that could have possibly hit his opponent, even though he might have a slight range advantage. Long still does have some of that. So it's a bit scary. So it's not like a huge criticism to say he didn't take a shot, but he probably should have, right?
Probably. So it's your turn, people. What do you think about all these tiny little decisions that ultimately add up to, well, to what we ended up getting, right? So there's that pre-flop play with the king 10. There's the post-flop play with the king 10. There's the decision by Amidi to bet ace 7 twice, but then not bet the river. There's the decision to really let Tyrion, even though he's in chains, sort of decide who's going to be king somehow, and everyone just goes along with it. What is Grey Worm doing? You see what I'm saying? These are questions. Why would Drogon, does Drogon really understand what the throne is? I mean, I know dragons are smart, but anyway, lots of little decisions that really end up mattering.
Yeah, hopefully you haven't seen it yet.
Whatever.
Nice spoilers.
It's your problem.
Yeah, no, seriously, we'd like to know what you think about these marginal decisions. But if you want to know even more about what we think about these marginal decisions, check out the podcast where we spend, I think it was an hour on this one, talking about each of these little tiny decisions and really going back and forth for our big and little reasons why we like these decisions and why we don't like these decisions. You got to check out the podcast. It's The Breakdown presented by the Poker Guys or something like that. You'll find it. It's on your favorite podcast apps.
The Breakdown Poker Podcast with the Poker Guys.
Yeah, get on there.
It's not that hard.
All right, and if you like this video, make sure you subscribe to this YouTube channel.